Welcome to America's Heritage Days preview. My name is Shane Reinert, and today I've got some great guests here from the Daughters of the American Revolution. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, ladies, who are the Daughters of the American Revolution?
The Daughters of the American Revolution are available to any woman 18 years or older who can trace direct ancestry to a Revolutionary War patriot. That basically is the only requisite.
Okay. And how did each of you become involved with the Daughters of the American Revolution? I guess we'll start here with that.
Okay. I'd always been interested in it. I knew that we had ancestry that went back that far. Actually, a member of my bridge club heard me talking about a research that we were doing in genealogy and said, oh, you've got to come to our next meeting. And I did, and I've been hooked ever since.
All right.
My husband insisted that I should become a DAR. I didn't even know what it was, but I soon found out and have been a member since about 1972, and I've served as state regent, and it's a wonderful organization.
Fantastic.
I was one of the lucky ones. A lot of people have to hunt and search for an ancestor. Some of them go in not even knowing if they have one or not. I was very fortunate because my aunt was a DAR. She had the records, however, she had the records with her family, and they moved to New Mexico, so I didn't have a lot of communication with them, and I wasn't sure who it was. I just knew that I had one. So my cousin, who's my age, knew I was kind of interested in that, and he had to search through records himself, and one day he calls and he says, I found him, I know who he is. So he gave me all the information, and I started from there. And it was an easy experience. Since then, I have discovered just lately that I have another ancestor. I'm 99% sure. I haven't applied yet for it and gotten all the paperwork, but I'm very interested in that. That's on my mother's side of the family. The other one was my father's side. And he is local. He came to Ohio shortly after the Revolutionary War and spent the rest of his life in the Hamilton area. And our chapter is named John Riley Chapter, and he and this Pearson Sayre were acquainted with each other. So I thought it'd be really cool. So that's my next project, is to get the paperwork done for that one.
Fantastic. Where is the organization located?
Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C.?
1776 D Street.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are there various chapters? Is there one chapter that everybody's tied to?
Yes. But there are 102 chapters in Ohio. And as Patsy said, she had been the state regent. And as the state regent is in charge of all the 102 chapters. They're all certified, and most of them are pretty active. There are several in our area. We're a Cleft Valley chapter.
They're in all states and 11 countries.
Yes.
Okay. What exactly does the organization do?
Oh, all kinds of things. We give scholarships for various education, and like history and nursing. We, of course, do a lot of marking of historic places. We support the Indians and the Indian schools, and we have our own schools that we support in Appalachia areas. We have essay contests for students. We give ROTC pins and good citizenship awards. What else did we do, ladies?
I think the education is a big part of it.
Yes, it is.
We try to promote history, to keep history alive in our area particularly. And I know our chapter rather concentrates on that. And to make it available so that the children have an actual hands-on experience and learn about their history, their heritage.
Also veterans.
Oh,
Oh,
veterans.
big support for
support
veterans.
for veterans.
That's one of our projects in every chapter.
We also give tours of the Walmet homestead and the Civil War Museum that are both on the grounds there at the homestead. There's a Civil War Museum there as well, and we do that throughout the summer months, and when the weather is still good, we do that on a regular basis every weekend.
Sorry.
What?
As if I could interrupt, all three of us are trustees at the Walmet homestead. Marty will be as of Saturday, because we're all going to be in Columbus on this next weekend, and Patsy's coming back, and we're a pretty active group.
It sounds like it. It's definitely an interesting group. Do you guys have any events coming up?
Oh, definitely. We have what we are calling American Heritage Days. It will be held at the homestead on May 17th through the 20th, from 10 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, except on Sunday, when we will close at 3. We have approximately 95 to 100 performers, reenactors, veterans, people who will add to the history of our part of the country. We are going to have a lot of emphasis on the Morgan's Raiders, and there's a funny little story about that if you'd like to hear it.
Yes, definitely.
We have 8.5 acres at the homestead, and we have a full-time caretaker who lives there. And I just found this out recently. The Morgan's Raiders, about 2,000 of them, spent 2 days in the hills overlooking Camp Dennison, which was at that time was a very active Union camp. About 100,000 men went through there at one time or another. And one of the raiders went into Miamiville and met a young lady, and said he really fell for her rather hard. And he said, "When this war is over, I'm coming back and marry you." And he did. And our caretaker is their great-grandson.
Wow.
I know, he's back where he started.
The
Incredible.
Walmet House is owned by the state, DAR.
Yes.
Not every state has museums, and we're very fortunate to have something like this.
And have it in our backyard.
Definitely.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, it's a very beautiful building. My wife and I went through there right before we got married, and we had no idea that was there. We were looking for historical places to go, and we had the honor of going through, and boy, it's just beautiful. Very, very well maintained.
And
We-
we're working on it too.
Oh, yes.
We like to bring school kids there, and over the years, it used to be pretty routine that once a year on our American Heritage Day, we would invite the schools to come and tour the museums. It's over the years, they used to come in busloads of school kids would come at a time from the various schools. It's a little more difficult now because of the economy. But we're still inviting those kids. We still have a couple schools that are doing it, and we're inviting the kids. And some of them, I emailed quite a few of the teachers just recently, and they are very excited about it. And because they can't come with the school group, what we're doing instead is we're going to offer them extra credit for history. And we'll give them a little certificate saying that they were there and what they learned, and then they can go back and share that with their classroom. So we're excited about that.
That's a great idea. That's a great way to get kids in there.
Oh, and it gets them, yeah, because kids really like living history. When it comes to life, they get excited.
Well, we're unique in that we have 2 museums on the property too.
Right.
And
cover two
we're working on the barn, because we own a Conestoga wagon, a Civil War medical wagon, and President Garfield's surrey. So we're making addition to the barn to have all of that available to people to see and all.
And I just recently found out that through my reading that President Garfield was a soldier at Camp Dennison. He was a junior officer, but he was definitely there. So his story ties in, I think, very well.
Well, it was the largest mustering in and out camp,
yeah.
the small Civil War museum. So if you had someone in Ohio serving in the Civil War, they probably came through that building there.
We just found out my great-grandfather did. He was from Zanesville, Ohio. Had been a prisoner of war at Bel Air, prisoner of war camp, and came through there on his as being discharged. And we just found that out. So it brings everything rather close to all of us. We can all identify with some part of it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Who are some of the speakers or people who will be coming to this event?
Well, tell them about your husband.
My husband is a reenactor for Patrick Henry, and he has just recently taken on the role of Daniel Boone. And he's been doing this, well, he's been doing Patrick Henry for about 8 years, and Daniel Boone just started with that. But Daniel Boone is very appealing to the younger kids. And it's a little closer to home as well. But he will be there, and then another gentleman named Dr. Emil Dansker plays the role of George Rogers Clark. He will be there. We have a woman who plays the role of Dolly Madison, and of course we have our Betsy Ross right next to us. And then some of the groups that are coming are also interesting. We're really celebrating the veterans a lot, and
yes.
We have among some of the people, the Tuskegee Airmen are coming, and U.S. colored troops, and representatives from the War of 1812. And help me out, I can't name them all.
Well, we have the Revolutionary. Well, we're having what I call a pathway of honor, and we're starting with the Revolutionary War reenactors, and we'll progress tent by tent by tent to all of the major wars of this country, reenactors, as well as when we get to this revolution or to the Second World War, we will have actual veterans there, so the children can talk, the students can talk to the people who are actually there. The Warbirds Museum in Batavia is coming also, and several of the people who are associated with our Warbirds Museum were actually pilots in the Second World War. And they have agreed to come. As a matter of fact, they'd love to come. So the Korean War will be the same. Also, Vietnam War veterans, the Gulf War veterans, and hopefully we'll get some from, have a representative from the Afghanistan War. But we're honoring all of our heroes in a timeline. And we're very excited about that.
We also have a variety of artisans and entertainers that will be there. We usually have a weaver, spinner, or weaver, and gentleman that is a candle maker and a beekeeper. He does both. And dulcimer players, flying clouds dancers, that they do historic dance. And then a new group is coming this year, the Southern Singers, which is Native American entertainers that do their song and their dance.
We also will be having a troupe from the Dance-A-Lot studio in Mount Washington, and they will be doing a program for us. It's going to be busy, extremely busy.
It sounds like it. It sounds like you guys are really putting a face on history for a lot of people who haven't, they didn't live during that period. They maybe weren't taught about all the different wars and all the different history that we have.
And so much of the history that has been written has been rewritten. And I think it would be a good idea for them to hear from the people who were actually there, or who have made an intensive study of it. The gentleman who's coming from this 1812 war, his name is Michael Cooper, and he's a recruiting sergeant with the 1812, what are the Dragoons, I believe they call themselves, and he's coming with several of his men. They're having a big bivouac next weekend, but they're free this weekend and will be there.
Right. I believe there's also a couple of gentlemen that are coming from the Freedom Center and they will be talking about the Underground Railroad system and some of the more local Civil War type of history, which will be very entertaining.
And Christian Walmet will be there.
Oh,
yes.
Oh, gosh, how could we forget him?
Yes. And this gentleman he's never done it before, but he's excited about it. And the nice thing about it is he speaks German. And the Walschmidts, this whole community was originally called New Germany because they spoke nothing but German in this community. And this gentleman speaks German. It will be interesting to see how he brings it out.
And
So-
we will have food so
Yes.
they can come and enjoy the whole day.
Fantastic. Ladies, what's some of the history to the Walschmidt house?
Oh,
Well, it was given to us by Chester Kroger in about 1940, and we started work on it, and then the war came along, and we had to cease. And then it was around, what, 1960s?
I think about 1950, they said,
50s,
yes, in the
that
50s.
we really got it going and started having tours and opening it to the public and all.
It's interesting that in the donations, et cetera, they're always given to preserve this because this is through the entire state of Ohio, not just Cincinnati. And the women who were in charge of the redevelopment and restoration of the house would only go as far as their money allowed them to go, and then they would have to stop. And at one point I read, excuse me, I read that they had 93 cents in their checking account. They had gotten that low, and then they had to stop and reduce. But the house itself was started in 1796. No, 1794. And the kitchen of the house is the original building. And then it was added on to in 1804. And Christian Walschmidt was a very interesting man. He was, excuse me, he was in his 30s when he bought 1,140 acres from John Cleves Sims. And he brought the first paper mill into this area. He traded. He had a rum factory. He had everything going for him. He had a lumber factory going. He brought commerce into there. And he chose that site deliberately because of the proximity to the Miami River. He even had a part of the Miami River dammed up, made a millway so that he could run his mills. He was quite an innovative man, very far-seeing man.
Yeah, he drove his herds of hogs down Wooster Pike to the river.
That's right.
Probably be hard to see that now, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think they'd like it.
But we didn't get the small building, which is the Civil War Museum, until later. And it was opened in the 1970s. So it doesn't have as much history for tours as the house does, because we just didn't have ownership of it at that time.
Well, it too was built in 1804. It's on the same piece of property. And it was built by Christian Walschmidt for his daughter Kate when she got married. And we always refer to it as Kate's house. It's just a little smaller version of the big house. But during the Civil War, it was used as a sentry house, also the jail. And today it's very nicely done with Civil War memorabilia.
The houses were built with limestone from the river there. And it's one of the best examples of Pennsylvania Dutch architecture, this side of the Alleghenies.
Absolutely.
What is something that someone would see if they came out there to the Walschmidt house? What do you guys have there that would maybe put more of a face or some objects in their sight line that they haven't seen or heard of before?
Well, the houses, furnishings are all before 1840. We don't accept things beyond that unless they belong to a family. So they would see early furniture. They would see photographs, portraits of the people, like the Turpins and the West, which are all roads out in that area. And The kitchen is fascinating because it has a huge fireplace where they did their cooking, and the utensils are of early American period. We have a coverlet collection that is outstanding.
It's gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
A gorgeous
and
collection.
Quilts. There are many, many things that they would see and experience. He had a store in the house, and so the one room was used as the store. People would come in and do their trading there. And downstairs is the pub room where the men would come in and have a pint of something. And,
Of whatever.
yes. And we have a collection of mugs in there.
That's true.
Oh,
With a
yeah.
huge fireplace.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about that was that Mr. Waldschmidt had an entrance, a separate entrance for the pub room, a separate entrance for his storeroom, and the entrance for his family. He wasn't going to mix the two. They came in different directions.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting too, in the parlor is the only original fireplace surround that is still in place, and it's a dental molding fireplace, and it was carved by Daniel Boone's cousin, who was part of that community at one time, and it was done with a penknife. It's just beautifully done. But I think the youngsters like to hear that. You know,
Yeah.
Daniel Boone's cousin, carved that one. But it can be a working house. We have a member who would love to live there.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm
Yeah.
sure. There's probably lots of people who'd love to live there. There are very few historical places that would probably even be available for something like that.
Yes, yes. It's a beautiful place.
Well, even in the barn, she mentioned a little bit earlier about the Conestoga wagon that they have in Garfield's, Surrey, and the kids really enjoy seeing that. And we also have the gentleman that brings all the flags. He's got a collection of about 70 flags.
Yes, Paul Wilkie.
All over America, all early American. A lot of them are state flags. And he tells a story about all of those flags, and we usually have those on display. And they like seeing that.
Yeah, the flags belong to the Sons of the American Revolution.
Right.
And Mr. Wilkie takes care of them and gives talks on them. It's a wonderful collection. And we work closely with the Sons of the American Revolution also.
Fantastic. Are you guys still accepting donations? If somebody has something, they bought this house and they found something there that looks like it may be, of that period, do you still accept those
That
donations?
goes to the Curators Committee,
Okay.
and then they research it, and then it passes on. But sure, anything that would be authentic and of the period.
All right, and ladies, this event is coming up when again?
May 17th through the 20th, from 10 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, except Sunday when we stop at 3.
Okay.
And there will be docents there. There will be women who will be there from the various chapters who will be acting as guides, and if anybody needs direction, we will be happy to help them with that. But there will be docents in all of the houses. And we're hoping that some of the Civil War men, reenactors, will also act as docents in the Civil War Museum. There will be a trustee there too, but they know more about it than I think than a lot of us do.
Well, ladies, thanks for coming in and telling us about all the wonderful history we have here and this great event coming up. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you again soon. Please make sure to find out more about the Walschmidt House, and make sure you attend this event. This sounds like it's going to be a great opportunity to learn a lot about history.